Hello, everyone. Welcome to Disrupt Your Week. We are live. We are live on Facebook. We are live on Clubhouse in the Disrupt Your Week room. Just search for @Paul Blanchard to be able to listen in. Excited to be doing these dual broadcasts. We just started that last week. So those of you watching this live, we go about 25, 30 minutes here on Facebook Live, which is also being broadcast on Clubhouse. And then after the presentational part of the show, then we go to Q&A only on Clubhouse. So those of you joining on Facebook that are at the Habit Finder page watching this, excited to have you here. We hope that as many of you as possible will be able to join us on Clubhouse after this show ends. And we're going to do interactive Q&A, conversation, coaching, discussion, whatever, for another 15, 20 minutes at least on Clubhouse after this call. So the opportunity to be able to be here, we're excited to be on both Facebook Live. Again, the first part of this is recorded on Facebook on our Habit Finder Facebook page. Those of you hopping in here on Clubhouse, welcome. So excited to see you here. We will be interacting and talking here as soon as we wrap up the show. But this is Disrupt Your Week with Paul Blanchard. I'm the president of Habit Finder. This is a show I've been doing previously called the Power Sessions that we were doing on Tuesdays for almost 6 years. So an opportunity to hop in here and change things up a little bit. Very excited to be with you. But today's topic, I want to jump right into this. I want to start having this conversation with everybody here on Facebook and on Clubhouse. We're going to be talking about one of the core elements that we go against the grain to a lot of things out there in personal development and mindset on. And we're going to be talking about your why today. I want to talk about some of the most important things to take into consideration when it comes to your why. Because we've had the opportunity to measure scientifically and mathematically measure over 250,000 people's brain patterns with the Habit Finder assessment. And what we want to talk about today isn't about what you think it is. It's about how your brain reacts to it. So I get it. All of you are going to be coming in here, whether on Facebook Live, Clubhouse, you're going to be coming in here with an idea of what a why is or what it is to you or what it should be. I'm bringing scientific data to talk about what your brain does with that. And more importantly, I heard someone say the other day, I love the term, I can't remember who it was, but they said, your downstairs brain. I want to talk about what your downstairs brain does with it, okay? That's one of my favorite ways I've ever heard it put, because that's what matters. That's why Og Mandino, who wrote one of the greatest books ever, The Greatest Salesman in the World, talked about in the very first scroll in that book, said that we want to address the other mind, because that's the mind that never sleeps. It creates our dreams, but it makes us act in ways we do not comprehend. And the patterns of that mind, Og went on to say, threaten to imprison my future. Wow. To mark out the path and imprison my future because of the way our brain is built. So when we get on here and Disrupt Your Week, we're not just talking about what you think the topic is about and how you think you handle it and how you think you interpret it. The reason it's Disrupt Your Week is we want to disrupt that downstairs brain. I've heard it referred to as your thermostat as well. I love that one. The thermostat that's set that we keep trying to warm up the room or cool off the room with a fan or a fire or whatever it is. But as soon as that thermostat changes 1 degree, it fires all of our unconscious defenses to get it back to the temperature it's used to. So that's what we want to disrupt today. And today we are taking on your why. Okay, we're taking on something that it creates tremendous challenges for people. Let me start off by saying I think that your why is important. In fact, I think that your why is vital. I think it is critical to creating success that is both fulfilling in the journey and fulfilling in the accomplishment. I think it's critical in terms of being passion-driven. Passion being a willingness to suffer, a willingness to be able to drive for something, to give you direction and focus. I think whys are incredibly important. I just think that over time, they've been boosted up, they've been sensationalized, and they're creating more problems than they are good solutions. This is similar to vision boards. We'll talk about that on a different Disrupt Your Week. Okay, what people think vision boards are fantastic, but how your downstairs brain reacts to a vision board for about at least 76%, last time I checked the stats, if not a little higher, 76% of you listening to this, it's not a good reaction. But today we're going to focus on whys. And this came from an analogy that I was sharing the other day in terms of a GPS that you have in your car. We're going to compare your why to a GPS. A GPS provides tremendous direction and focus, and it gets you to your destination in terms of that direction, but you still have to drive the car. The GPS, at least as of today, does not drive the car for you. You've still got to put in the fuel. You've still got to be able to create the vehicle, and you've got to be able to know how to operate that vehicle properly so that the GPS can be worthwhile. But on its own, the GPS is worthless. If I have no way to get to turning left on Washington Street and I'm 30 miles away from Washington Street, well, I'm going to want to check in with how to actually drive my vehicle. Having a GPS, I mean, for those of you who grew up in my generation or older, my generation was the print off directions generation, the MapQuest days, right? And I'm sitting there. I remember on my honeymoon, my wife and I were trying to find where we're headed in the middle of nowhere and stopping at gas stations, be like, it told us to do this and do this, but that doesn't quite seem right. And all these different things. Now today, you just open your phone, and as long as you have connection when you start it, that GPS can get you anywhere in the United States, anywhere in the world for that matter. It's incredible. It's amazing. The GPS is awesome, but it doesn't drive the car. So many entrepreneurs are sitting in the parking lot, dialing in different destinations. Oh, this is my why. Oh, this is what's going to do it. And then they hit directions, go. They hit go, and they don't go. Well, that's because we're relying on something to do something it can't. Your why will not get you to work. It's going to direct your work. It's going to inspire your work. It's going to sustain your work. So many wonderful things, but it is not the spark. That's you. And that's harder said than done. You think about the spark plug in an engine, like the kickstand on that, the kickstart on a motorcycle. Like, you need to create some combustion. The GPS doesn't do that. It provides direction. It provides focus and passion. It's wonderful. So let's talk about what it does do and how you're going to want to address it differently. First thing, in terms of just a simple question, what is your why? Okay? What is your why? That's really important to consider, but not presentationally important. The first thing I want to address today is understanding that your why is not going to be engraved on a plaque. It should be dynamic. It should be ever evolving. It should be a Swiss Army knife that has a different tool for each day, a different thing that you can consider and attach and emotionally attach to, intrinsically attached to every day. So many people out there being taught, because they've heard so many speakers from stage say, my why is to do. And it just sounds so beautiful and so poetic. And so we think, oh, they're massively successful. So the way I'm going to be massively successful is by creating a beautiful sounding why. It's going to sound admirable and noble and philanthropic and life-changing. And then I'm going to go. No, that's in fact one of the worst places to start. That's like seeing Picasso do an incredible painting and you're in kindergarten with paint all over your fingers going, oh, I'll just create that. No, you got to start with the distorted little duck that's a weird color. Okay, we got to start where we are. We got to start simple. We've got to start with us. Start with a little why, okay? So when you consider what is my why, stop making it so complicated and stop comparing it. Just because so-and-so who is incredibly successful has this beautiful sounding why doesn't mean that's what their why was when they started. In fact, 99% of people who are very successful didn't have a great sounding why early on. They just had a drive. And they figured out the why along the way. Whys are developed on the path, not in the parking lot. And too many of us are getting stuck on these whys that need to be presentational as if they're going to be engraved in stone. So the first thing I want you to take away from today is allow your why to be really simple. Allow it to just be today's why. Start with that. See if you can connect with why today before you go off with why for the next 20 years or why because of such and such or this experience. Start with just why today. If it gets you on the road, if it gets you one step in front of the other, awesome. Because if you're sitting there go, my why needs to be presentational, and you're sitting there just scrapping papers. Well, that's not it. That doesn't sound good on Clubhouse. I need to be able to say that better. So let me go figure out how to say that better. And then, because once I say it better on Clubhouse or I say it better on Facebook, then I'm going to be on my way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not in forward motion, if you're not getting to work. Now, number 2 is one of the greatest challenges in doing that. And that is that we make our whys too big. Too big. The bigger the why, the bigger the burden. The bigger the why, the bigger the burden. We want to build up stamina for our why. Don't launch out there with some Atlas why, where you're carrying an earth-sized why on your back because you're a vivid visionary that can see changing hundreds of thousands of lives and making such a big difference on villages in this part of Africa or people who don't have water in the Sudan or whatever it is. Whatever it is, even if it's local, don't go for the big why yet. You'll want to take on a bigger burden when you have more stamina, when you are stronger. And guess how you get stronger? You start simple. You start small. You don't go walk into the gym and grab the biggest dumbbells. Okay? You don't go and lift the heaviest weights. You want to find out what you can naturally do, then do a little bit more. And it's the same thing with your why. Start small. If you're not consistently in forward motion, okay, we talk all the time. The number one cause of doing too little is trying to do too much. The number one cause of not being in forward motion is your why is probably too big or you're trying to make it too presentational. So those are the first 2 things I want you to take away from today. Don't try and make your why presentational. It's yours. It's yours. You'll turn it into something eventually, and it'll become more polished the further you get down the path, the more experiences you have. Okay? We've created a handful of incredible online courses at Habit Finder, and we always shoot the introduction last because that's where we share why we're doing it, why we created this course. Why do we shoot it last? Because then we're down the road. Then we've done it. We know in general why we want to do it. We want to be able to bless people's lives with technology and convenience. But in terms of diving into being able to elaborate the why, we get it done first. Then it just flows. Very similar to your life. Go get to work, and your why will start to shape itself. Be open. Be curious about the way that you explore it, okay? But don't make it too big. We want to be able to take off the runway and fly. It takes so much more energy, okay, so much more horsepower to get a plane to take off than it does to just get it to continue to fly in the sky. There are 2 things that are required to take off on the runway: velocity and reduction of drag. And too many people are adding drag with a big why and relying on more and more velocity. Oh, it just needs to be a bigger why, a more powerful why, which isn't even giving them any velocity. And then they create such a big why that when they go out there, they're going to need a ridiculous amount of horsepower to be able to take off because they have so much why baggage. Keep it simple, people. We're not here to present our whys in a group so that they can artistically critique them. You'll know you've got a good why because it got you to take the next step. That's it. And the bigger it is, the harder it is for your brain to do that because it wants to figure out all the steps to get that big why done. Okay? Now, those of you listening in, I just want to reset the room really quick. We are broadcasting on Clubhouse live right now, and we're on the Habit Finder Facebook page talking about disrupting your week with your why. This is a weekly Habit Finder show that I host and have been hosting a show like this for almost 6 years. We do the show live on Facebook and live on Clubhouse, and then after the show ends, which is usually 20, 25, 30 minutes max every Wednesday at the same time, 10 o'clock Mountain Time, then I sign off of Facebook and stay on Clubhouse to interact with people that are in there with any questions they've got, any discussion they want to have, going a little bit deeper. So welcome all of you that are watching this on Facebook. Welcome all of you that are listening in on Clubhouse. We're in a presentational mode. We'll be in an interactive mode in Clubhouse after here, probably in the next 10 minutes. So, but TJ, love that. Your why today is to make it fun. Awesome. So the next question is, what would be fun today? And then go do that. Keep it simple. Okay. Keep it like something that keeps you in forward motion, little baby steps. Even if you take them on quickly, you still want to have them be baby steps. So far, those of you just joining us, we've been talking about what is your why, and to make sure that you're not trying to create a presentational why. Okay. There are people that dream of winning an Oscar, and they have written the perfect acceptance speech, but they've never written a script, or they're not doing enough auditions. They're not putting the work in. So you could write the most perfect script acceptance speech in the world, and that's like your why. So don't make your why presentational. Go get to work, and it will shape itself. And then the second one is, don't make it too big. Because when we're looking to take off in the runway of life, because early on it's difficult to take off the runway, requires more power than it does to stay in flight. We want to understand that comes from increasing velocity by getting to work and reducing drag. Stop making it so complicated. Stop making your why so big, because the bigger the why, the more the burden. You want to be able to carry those burdens easily, but you got to build strength and stamina to do that. Next one, okay, is what we've talked about in this show before, about the dark side of why, the shadow side of why. And it is these two questions. Why am I not? And why can't I? Or other versions of those. Why do I keep on? Or why can't I stop? Or why can't I be? Or whatever it might be. That's the shadow side of why. Okay? Totally, Karen. That's at the core of all of this. Do the work. Do the work in simple steps. Don't take on more than you can handle. Build your stamina there as well. When we talk about the shadow side of why, this is that part of the brain that feels that it's going to make progress. It's going to be able to substitute work for inquiry, because that's easier for the brain. I'd much rather do a Google search than have to actually go to the library and put work in. It's that kind of mentality. I'd rather use the microwave than have to fire up the stove and do it the old-fashioned way. But oftentimes when people are referring to the old-fashioned way, that's the work. Okay? The opportunities that come from that work. It's not work smarter, not harder. Oh, man. It's work smarter and harder. Because the smarter you work with the hard work you're doing, the bigger dividends, the more of a return you'll get on that work. So we want to consider both sides, but what we want to make sure we don't get sucked into is the whys that are trying to figure out why there's something wrong with me, why I can't accomplish this, why I wasn't given that or this. That why, the answer to that question doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's literally trying to dig yourself out of a hole. Literally trying to dig yourself out of a hole. If you think about that image, oh, I'm in this hole. I need to get out. Let me dig deeper. That's not going to get you out. Doesn't work that way. All of us tried to dig to China to get to the other side of the earth as kids. I did anyway, plenty of times. I love digging holes, whether we were at the beach or in the backyard or whatever. It's not going to happen. Okay. It's going to get harder and harder and harder, and you're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you're in the same result, but now you're fatigued and tired. So be really cognizant, be really conscious to not spend a lot of time figuring out, if I could just figure out why I can't do that. The answer doesn't matter. Do it, and then step back and go, okay, now what am I experiencing? Why? What was the resistance to that? It doesn't mean do it every day. Your brain will shut you down on that. But if I did it today, something you feel like you can't, like let's just give a really common one. I want to quit smoking. Don't think about quitting smoking for the rest of your life. Just go, why can't I quit today? So I'm going to quit today. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to consciously assess what I heard, what I felt, what I ran into by not smoking. Okay. Some of you are like, well, I can't do social media. Okay, then just do it today. And then assess at the end of the day consciously and cognitively what you experienced by doing something that you have been figuring out why you can't do it. Because what it's typically going on is, why can't I do it forever? Or why can't I keep doing it? Well, part of that is because we're trying to answer a question that doesn't serve us. Even if you found out the reason, what do you do with it then? What do you do with it then? Oh, well, actually, we found out that there's a proclivity in your brain that desires life to be easier and simpler, and that's why you're not doing it consistently. Okay, great. So that's going to solve your problem? Excellent. We have an academic answer. We have an indexed following of whatever with peer-reviewed study. That doesn't do the work either. That's the shadow side of your why. Don't get stuck asking, why don't I? Why can't I? Because the answer to that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Go do it and figure out the answer in retrospect. Just like you want to start with a really simple why and allow it to shape itself as you're heading down the road. Okay? Doing the action absolutely trumps, your thinking. Og put it this way: strong are they who force their actions to control their thoughts. Weak are they who allow their thoughts to control their actions. Which is interesting because he's talking about partnering with your thoughts and creating good habits and everything. But when push comes to shove, you got to make sure we're not waiting for our thinking or our feeling, even worse, waiting until we feel like it to do it. Oof, that's a really long and frustrating and fruitless road. Okay, we want to understand that as we're building this out, that shadow side of why is not going to give you the answer that you think it will in terms of actually solving the problem. Because at the end of the day, even though you now have more answers, you haven't done any more work. You're not any further down the road, any further down the path. And all of us have our intricacies, but at least head the right direction. I don't know how to get to Rock Springs, Wyoming, on my own. I need a GPS for that. But I know it's north of here. For a lot of miles, it's north of here. And then there's going to be some freeway exchanges, some highways. But I know I've at least got a lot of miles that I can just head north. So start heading north, okay? Start heading that direction, getting an opportunity to do that. So with that said, we've got don't get sucked into a presentational why, okay? Don't make your why too big, okay? Amy, that is, now you're psyching me out. I want to say it's scroll 6. It's either scroll 6 or scroll 3 in terms of, it is scroll 6, right? Okay, my producer's confirming, but I'm my gut said it was 6, so I'm pretty sure it's in 6. But anyway, it's going to be in one of those two. So I saw the question, I was like, oh crap, which one? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's in. Anyway, so but with that said, presentational whys, okay, whys that are too big, okay, and don't ask the whys about what's holding you back. The answer to those questions don't help. Okay. Next, this is a touchy one, but it's really important because people that will really take this in and really consider this are often tremendously emotionally liberated. And it is this: your family is not your why. Your kids are not your why. They're not. Just want you to take that in for a second before I explain a little more, because I want you to feel some of the resistance I always get to that statement. Shared that on stages all over the world, shared that with thousands of people, and so many people receive that, because now we're in the what you think it is versus how your brain reacts to it. Let me explain. Your family, your kids, your spouse, they're not your why, they are your who. They are your who, meaning they matter just as infinitely much no matter what you accomplish or don't accomplish. No matter whether you win or you lose, or is a good day or a bad day. We don't need our family to be a why. They're our who. Meaning we love them with everything we have no matter what, and hopefully they love us with everything no matter what. We don't need to leverage that to be better. That's our safety net. That's our foundation. That's our, no matter what happens, I've got my who. Why would we need to turn that into a carrot? Why would we need to say, I've got to get better for them? No, you are who you are with them. Now go create a why because of the strength that gives you, because of the foundation that allows you to stand on. There are so many people who have told me that their kids are their why, for example, that their family is their why. And then they fell short, which is inevitable as a human being. If your kids, your wife, your husband, your partner is your why, and you fall short, which is inevitable, it is impossible for the brain to not go, oh, they must not matter as much to me as I thought. And then we feel guilty. We feel less than. Wow, if I couldn't do it for my family, I really suck. If I couldn't pull it off for my kids, I really am a terrible person. Whether you realize those thoughts are there or not, that's the risk and the danger of trying to make your who your why. Now, you can have a why that involves your family, like a why to go to Disney World or travel somewhere or get a car that everyone would love having. But them themselves, their intrinsic pricelessness, their who-ness, okay? Sounding like Dr. Seuss. Them being your who is pure and intrinsic. It's a foundation that you should trust is always going to be there. That's why some of the greatest mentors I've had have made very clear that there is no failure. There's no success in the world that can make up for failure in the home. That's your who. Don't try to leverage them as your why, which I'm not saying because you should feel bad if you have. I'm saying because you will feel bad if you do. Because eventually you'll mess up. Eventually you'll fall short. Eventually you'll make a mistake. And you're going to want to make sure that your who is intact and that you weren't trying to leverage them as your why, because then I couldn't do it for them. What's wrong with me? That's something really critical to consider. Okay? Lastly, is your capacity. If you're going to drive, if you're going to do the work, you're going to have a why. Be really clear about what your capacity for execution is when you get to work. It shouldn't just be this unfiltered, unadulterated surge of do everything, okay? Like it's you want to take baby steps. You want to be smart with what you're doing. You just don't want to let all this why and all this woo-woo slow you down from putting one foot in front of the other, being in forward motion. As my dad said many times, God does not drive parked cars. So remember that, but also honor your capacity. When you get ready to start driving forward, okay, when you get ready, when you are no longer getting ready to get ready, which is why we want to shrug this drag of big whys and presentational whys and the whys of the shadow side that don't lead to anything, and getting our who mixed up in our why and all that stuff. And now we're ready today. Hopefully right after this session, you're going to go do something you've been putting off. You're going to go get into forward motion. Stop overthinking it, not because you should stop thinking, but because you should stop overthinking it to get into forward motion. Then you can start thinking and acting and be able to start creating the orchestra of your life and the creation of your dreams. We've got to get that spark. We've got to get into action. We've got to make this happen. But honor your capacity. Be clear about what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. Everybody talks about, oh yeah, I'll make these sacrifices. In fact, here's the common phrase, I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to work with someone who will do whatever it takes. I get what you meant. Again, here we go. What your brain thought it meant, what you thought it meant, and what your brain is actually grabbing onto. You just said there are no boundaries. There is nothing I am not willing to do morally, ethically, physically, spiritually. And that's not where we live in our true, real, genuine, authentic selves. So honor your capacity. Stop trying to be superhuman and be superhuman. And take the opportunity as you drive forward to be able to ask yourself and write down, I'm willing to make these sacrifices. I'm not willing to make these. There might be some adjustments you need to make. There might be some sacrifices I'm not willing to skip dinner with my kids any night. Okay? But maybe for a season to hit your goals, it might require you to skip a dinner twice a week or once a week. That's fine. Understand the season, how long you're committing to, and then do that. But if you didn't create those boundaries, you have nothing to assess. You have nothing to calibrate. If it's just, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, which is bullcrap. No one is. No one that you want to be associated with anyway. I don't want someone who's going to sell their soul to the devil to be able to be successful. I want someone who is willing to do what they have the capacity to do, plus just a little bit more. Og said it's the secret to being more successful. To just be a little bit better than you currently are. Not as good as you think you are, because we often think linear. We think, oh, I was this good yesterday, so I should be this much better today. And no, we're very dynamic, very up and down. We're like a basketball game. You don't have to score the same amount of points to win every time. You just have to score more than your opponent. And you have different opponents every day. Some days you've got an opponent that's going to score a lot of points. You're going to want to be able to go. Other times you're going to have opponents that play great defense and you're not going to be able to score as many points, but you don't get discouraged. Don't feel like I didn't do as much as yesterday, so I didn't win. It's the aggregate. It's the compounding effect of what we do. Those are the things that we want to make sure that we are carefully considering as we're going through this. Now, really quick, we're about to wrap up. Those of you listening on Clubhouse, stick around. I'm going to sign off of Facebook Live here. We've been doing our live Disrupt Your Week show. I'm Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder. I'm here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on the Habit Finder Facebook page. Just go to facebook.com/Habit Finder. Follow us. Listen. My dad does an incredible show on Monday mornings. I do one here on Wednesday mornings. And I also simulcast this on Clubhouse, which I'm about to sign off to be able to answer any questions, interact with people that are in Clubhouse. So if you have access to Clubhouse, please jump on and join us in the Disrupt Your Week room so we can have some conversation, talk about how you're experiencing your why or anything else. We can talk about anything in there. But thanks for listening in today into Disrupt Your Week here with Habit Finder. This is an opportunity to disrupt not what you think it is, but how your brain reacts to it. That's what Habit Finder is all about. It's why we created the most advanced, most powerful technology on the planet for measuring your unconscious hidden patterns of thinking. Because you've got about 50 to 80,000 conscious thoughts a day. And that's where most of us try to manage, try to work through. But what about the 1 to 2 million unconscious thoughts you have a day? What are those patterns? What are those things doing? Why are those things, as Og said, making you act in ways you don't fully comprehend? Some of the irrational behavior, some of the challenges in consistency or procrastination or whatever else. The opportunity to be able to really step in and disrupt things is what I prefer to do. I don't need you to think what I think. I just want you to stop thinking what you think in the ways that are holding you back. I agree, Fran. I am a massive fan of my dad too. Okay. And so the opportunity, yes, to be superhuman is what this is about. You'll see everybody trying to launch up. You'll see people flashing to success. I've seen what they look like 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. We don't want to fight to get what we want because then we've got to fight to keep it. And today we went through some incredible principles of how to readdress and recalibrate your why to help sustain you and honor what you deserve to create. So thanks for listening in. If you think there's anyone that needs to hear this that would serve them, please tag them, follow us. We're going to jump into Clubhouse now as they've been patiently listening through this show for me to get a chance to interact with them and answer the questions there. So love you all. Have an incredible day. We'll see you next week for Disrupt Your Week. Don't forget the Monday morning show with my dad at 8 a.m. on Mondays to launch your week and with Habit Finder. And we'll see you then. Everybody on Clubhouse, hang on, and we'll talk to you in just a moment.